welcome to No Question About That with me, Ed, and today with Adam. How's it going?
Oh, not as good as last week, but
No.
yeah, we'll get into that.
Guest co-host on the big pod. Right. Since we've been pumping out so much of this content, I'm not sure what the difference is between the big pod and the mini pods, but apart from length.
No, it's a big seat. It's a big seat. I'm excited to go.
Something like that.
It's a longer recording. Pressure's on. You've got to be on your game longer.
Yeah, game face. Yes, over the years I've managed to do game face with mega hangovers, lack of sleep, in the middle of the working day, whatever. Just somehow make it happen. All right, we're going to talk about United 3, Bournemouth 0, a rather familiar scoreline, sadly, and a strange game in many ways. So we had the Spurs game on Thursday. We'll see United lost 4-3. I think a lot of people came out of that one going, yeah, you know what? Not so bad, seeing the seeds of something here and then getting tanked 3-0 by Bournemouth. Again, a little harder to feel positive about that one. What's your gut reaction a day or so on?
I don't think the sting's been taken out of the tail by any measure. Back-to-back 3-0 defeats at Old Trafford by Bournemouth isn't something Manchester United fans are ever going to adjust to. I think the manner of it, the similarity to Nottingham Forest. So I think there's been quite a discussion and discourse in the last 24 hours about the XG argument, and that United have had quite a high XG, created a lot of big chances, twice as many as Bournemouth. Unfortunately, I don't think that's really going to help. Still conceding soft goals, 17 goals in 9 games now. Aren't finishing chances. Many. Yeah, I understand both sides of the argument. I think I just need to look at it more sunny side up. So Ruben Amorim's come in and tighten things up in open play. The team has conceded the second least XG in open play, I think, this season. But particularly well under Amorim, but it doesn't matter when you're just disastrous at defending set pieces, and the team is just conceding really bad goals. And these last 2 games are the best examples of that, right? So,
yeah, no doubt. Well, Forest, Arsenal as well, in a sense, since they pulled off their Stoke routine so successfully. Arsenal, Forest, Bournemouth, the 3 leading teams in the division on scoring from set pieces. So I guess in one sense we could go, I'll forget about it. Like, it just happens, but we've got to do better, especially disruptive. We're going to mark zonally at set pieces, corners, free kicks, whatever. Then you just really have to know the roles that you're playing in. You have to disrupt the opponents much better than United are doing. So it feels like one of those things that should be fixable. I mean, obviously, Carlos Fernandez is now the set piece coach. Andreas Georgsen has, I don't know what he's doing, putting the cones out or something, the punching bag in the dressing room, something. He's still on the books. They didn't fire him like everyone else, so there must see some value in him. There's been a little criticism of Carlos Fernandez as a result. Amorim sort of, I don't know, didn't exactly defend him, but said it's on me in the post-match press conference, which is like taking responsibility, which we all like to see. So there's that. Feels like that's a fixable one. The open play sequential errors, I feel like that has been a pattern for a few years now, and that might just take a little bit of time. There's been a tactical adjustment, 3 at the back, 2 sitting in front has really helped. And as you said, the expected goals against really quite tight. And so you could go, okay, the system feels all right, and it's the individual errors we've got to get out either by training, coaching, or just getting rid of players and bringing new ones in. So maybe don't panic about that. United's inability to play through the middle third into the attacking third and create high XG chances. So that 2 point whatever XG it is comes from 23 shots. So it's not a lot of really good quality chances being created there.
Yeah, I had someone, I don't know if you saw the tweet I made about the XG through the last several games. And I had a friend who works in data reach out to me and sort of give their take on it, is that United are falling behind, so their XG is going to go higher by chasing the game state. And I understand that. So I would probably, I guess looking back on it, I would probably cling to more the fact that defensive numbers are really good. I mean, conceded 1.63, but half of that is the penalty. And we know that challenge was a brainless one by Mr. Musrali, who has struggled the last few games. Maybe since that story came out in The Athletic, there's just been a little bit more heat on him. I don't know if that's had an effect, but I think the defensive problems are more fixable. They're more coachable, getting those errors out as the players get used to the new system and the demands of it. I just think it's there's just not as much room for error when they're playing such the system that they are now. Or is it an intelligence issue, which we already sort of knew about the squad, that the football IQ is probably not where it needs to be. The physical floor of the squad is not great. So it's a bit of both. But like you said, the cutting in, the Diogo Dalot shot where he cuts in from the left, you just know it's got to be the lowest quality chance there is for us.
Conversion was converted, yeah.
I would just look for, I'm looking for the pass every single time. I'm looking for a ball through. I'm not looking for, this isn't FIFA. So it is a little frustrating in that aspect. And like you said, the high XG is coming from a high number of shots that aren't creating high quality chances. So though that is probably a bigger problem to me. I think the defensive problems are much more fixable in the short term.
Yeah.
You're going to have to get better personnel in.
Amarim did say, actually, one of his earlier press conferences, that the attacking patterns are harder to coach. And so that will take more time. And obviously, they're really only having 1 or 2 coaching sessions in between games at the moment, given that you have to have some rest time. You have to have that recovery. So, and they'll have some video time and tactical stuff there, but not too many coaching sessions at Carrington at the moment. And that's just the nature of it. I guess we've freed up some space by going out the Carabao Cup. We won't have those 2 semi-finals in February now, which is a bonus, or January it would have been, which is a bonus, of course. We actually have 1 fewer game over the Christmas period than has often been the case as well. So a 4-day break between Wolves and whoever we play after that. Is it Liverpool? No, Newcastle.
Yeah, Newcastle.
Yeah. So a little bit of time here, but yeah, absolutely. It's gonna take several weeks, months to see the real benefits of Amarim's coaching. And then there's just the question marks over a whole bunch of players, aren't there? I mean, I think when we moved to this new system, we're like, well, hang on a minute. There's 1 fewer attacking players in the team now, basically. It doesn't mean the team is less attacking. It's just the nature of it. And we've got 8 forwards or 8 attacking players, 9 if you counted Ericsson, although I think he's probably just a solidly a number 8 these days. And 8 into 3 doesn't go. What's it going to look like? Well, it's changed up a little bit now, hasn't it? Because you've got Marcus Rashford frozen out of the squad for reasons of which we can all argue about. Mostly people arguing with absolutely no knowledge whatsoever, but yeah, hey, that is the internet. Then you've got Josh Zirkzee still trying to find his feet. I mean, I really struggled to see where those feet come from, honestly, but he's had, 17, 18 games now. Totally unfair to judge him based on that, coming to a new country and all of that. Anthony, we've had 2 and a bit years now of evidence that he just doesn't score goals or create them. And so then you've got Bruno hugging the touchline yesterday. Ahmad's our own, and Højlund hadn't scored loads, although he is an efficient finisher. He just needs to, the team needs to find him, or he needs to get into the right position. So all of a sudden, you've got all these players, none of whom score very many goals. Bruno's the only creator in that lot. Oh, apart from Ahmad, who's our leading assist maker this season. Ahmad's sort of come out of nowhere in one sense. And so you have all these kind of many players and quite a lot of problems or question marks over all the players. And that's part of it, right? Part of it's personnel and part of it's systems. We're not getting as many free goals as we could do. That could be set pieces or magic. And under Erik ten Hag, it was mostly, hey, let's rely on the magic. So you want the free goals as well as systems goals. We're not even really scoring the Amarim-style goal where there's the cutback and the tap-in. They're like, so many of Sporting's goals were like that, and we just haven't seen too many of those either. So I feel like we're just going to have to have a lot of patience. It's Manchester United and losing 4 games out of 9. Really hard to have patience with that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And we've gone into this pattern of 2 wins, 2 losses, 2 wins, 2 losses. And that's just not going to hold. There isn't the patience for it. We've already lost 4 games this month. We lost 5 this time last year. And that was a disaster. That was a really tough time under Erik ten Hag. It's interesting you're talking about the attackers. I was sort of thinking before we jumped on the recording, what fixes one problem that helps another? And for me, it all starts from the back. I know that the fans at Old Trafford were particularly impatient yesterday with the build-up out of the back. There was that moment with Onana holding onto the ball. I understand like the baiting the press and the slow build-up. For me, it all starts from the back. So once they improve in that build-up, it'll steadily improve up the pitch. The final third creation was particularly poor yesterday. I thought that was where we struggled the most. I know we created 4 big chances. Again, that was chasing the game. But also on top of that, it was those chances from Bruno in the first half, that one that was completely off target in about the 35th minute when he had the one chance after another. But also, yeah, you're talking about an attack. You're talking about all these misfit toys and players that don't, these square pegs, round holes. I'm sort of wondering with the 3 attackers, and I know that Ahmad's been the best attacker in the side this season, but I sort of think that he still fits better in that right wing back role. It just allows you to fit in another attacker. And I think we worry about the positions a little bit too much, don't we? Again.
Yeah.
But there's already a problem at wing back. I think that when you play 2 fullbacks, yesterday it was Delo and Mazraoui. When you play the fullbacks in those roles, it just sucks so much creativity out of the team. It puts such a demand on those 3 forwards to create and score when they already are struggling to do that. I think we'll see an uplift as a team as the team finds more cohesion there. I think we're talking about, Gyökeres and players who are being targeted to come in. But for me, there should be an uplift in the team when they find a better fit amongst the personnel. When they just create better chances, it should be better overall. So I'm not too worried. Like, I know that there's a lot of speculation about what January looks like, but for me, we already know right now that Ruben Amorim's just going to have to make do with what he has. So I'm not really worrying about dreaming about transfer targets and stuff like that. I'm more worried about getting a left wing back in than another attacker. Because those problems are just a little bit more fixable in the short term to me with what we have.
Wait, certainly when you play 2 defensive players in fullback positions, it's not just their kind of their attacking output, it's their ability to build up in the right situations. Mazraoui, I like he's a high quality all-round footballer, right? It's almost like you can put him in any position on the pitch. He's not going to look like an idiot. There's obviously places he's going to be better. Not necessarily going to play him at number 10, like Erik ten Hag when he had that brainwave/stroke that one time. But I don't like him at right wing back, honestly. He's the physicality there. And I think that's part of the reason. It was really dumb, the penalty to give away. But if he's going up and down that wing, I think that's probably more likely. I'm not sure I have loads of evidence other than I just don't like it instinctively. I like the calm presence he has at right side of the back 3. He's just a very intelligent footballer, and it helps United build up so well out of that. He's the sort of the mirror image of Martinez when Martinez is at his best. And you think about those connections between right side of the back 3, right wing back, and the right-sided attacker of the 3. And Amorim's trying to do this as well. Like, what are the connections then? You can see it in the passing maps, right? And on the left-hand side, we're struggling even more, really. So it's what the balance is on the right there. And then Martinez, left wing back, ideally not Delo. Multifaceted footballer, but I just don't think left wing back you're going to get the best out of him. And who's the left-sided attacker? And yesterday you had Martinez kind of not on it, really. Martinez played, or am I getting that break? Yeah, he did. Yeah. And then Malacia, who had a bit of a mare, honestly, not fit. Yeah, maybe never will be. Like, he's had 2 really serious knee injuries. And then Bruno's super wide. And his sort of algorithmic score in all the apps and stuff like that will look really high because he makes lots and lots and lots of passes, but they're all from the wrong position for him. And so it just didn't feel balanced. And then on the right-hand side, I wasn't sure that we had the right balance there necessarily either. So he's trying to find those combinations. Centre of the park as well. the combination between Ugarte and Mainu on paper should be great. Is it the right one? Mainu took a lot of heat yesterday. He actually made 9 interceptions, I think it was, and 5 take-ons. It was a team high for both ones, and a couple of key passes, shot creating actions as well. So it's an all-round performance, but you want to be able to progress the ball. And it's just, I'm not saying all these things are a problem, but it's like, what's the balance and the combinations that are going to get the best out of this team? And then just to round out this thought, like if you want a template for what you can get through coaching rather than just spending money, Bournemouth not it. I mean, they've got one of the smallest budgets in the league because they've got 11,000 and whatever capacity, and they've just got a super smart sporting director in Pinto who goes around and finds all these players, and like a coach that we imagine is going to go on to do great things.
Yeah, I thought watching yesterday, one thing you also mentioned about Bruno was that dropping wide. You did notice him looking to the touchline a few times. I think that it sort of was just demonstrative of the players not fully understanding where they need to be. And I sort of think him pulling wide sometimes is just trying to be available and make something happen. But again, it is a problem because it pulls the shape apart. And Bournemouth are the best example, again, like you said, of this sort of team who are so well drilled that there isn't that hesitation. The automations are there. They understand where their teammates are going to be. There isn't the second guessing, and there was such a stark difference yesterday in that first half. They were just all over United. That first half hour, especially, it's like we couldn't get out of the defensive half. Couldn't get through their press. It was so stark, and they just weren't intimidated by Old Trafford at all.
Why would they be? I mean,
yeah,
they come to Old Trafford and they win.
So. Yeah, I mean, they've signed players from Porto, Juventus in the summer. It does show you the power of the Premier League, but it also does show you the power of a good sporting director and a coach. Like you said, Pinto has a slew of contacts throughout Europe, was very highly regarded. It's a real coup for Bournemouth, and again, a credit to what small budgets and smart hires can do.
Yeah.
But it's tough to swallow for United fans to be like, oh, look what good work Bournemouth are doing.
It will be an interesting question now. We don't have a sporting director at United, whether they bother to reappoint someone else or whether they think that it's basically covered through Barada doing operations, Wilcox on the technical side and evaluation, squad management and stuff like that, and Vivell on the recruitment side. So, and obviously the negotiation team and stuff like that, and whether they think they've got that covered because they don't have a Monchi or a Pinto or a bunch of other people. And in the past, over the past 10, 15 years, when they've not had that, they've gone and relied on agents, and that has not served United well because they are not working in United's interest, even if they do take a £10 million fee or whatever it is to bring the player in. They are like real estate agents. They're going to sell you a dud and tell you it's the best house on the planet, and so on, right? And United have really suffered, and they need to do their own due diligence in a way because, even with the summer signings, who I think generally speaking have worked out all right, right? De Ligt has been pretty good. Mazraoui has been excellent. Yesterday's mistake aside, Ugarte's really coming into his own. We could legitimately criticize some aspects of his game, but I think he's putting in the kind of performance his fans will love. And on the defensive side of things, excellent. So it's been mostly good. Josh Xerxes, a question still. But it has to be that. It has to be 80% right. Otherwise, you're really going to struggle going forward to spend the budget and get out of our financial hole, which is hundreds of millions deep now, and build the team while working within the constraints of until we work out the cycle, right? So, 3 years' time, we've worked off all the crap. We've got 6 windows of good purchases, then you're in a better position, right? So look at Liverpool. They had what seemed like about 3 years of absolutely perfect transfer record, no notes, nothing went wrong at all. And that's very unusual. And United needs something similar to get this going again, not waste the money. And it's a double hit, right? It's the cost of bringing someone in. It's the cost of shipping them out as well. We have to pay off a contract, or you're looking at like if Casemiro goes this summer, we don't get a fee, a one-time impairment charge, right? And that kind of thing. It's really costly.
Yeah, I mean, you even look at Marcus Rashford's deal. So through 2028, I think there's close to £60 million still on that contract. Even if you spread that over a 5-year deal at another club, I mean, you're still looking at a 200K plus wage a week, and that's without an increase. Like, is he just going to be happy to spread that contract across 5 years without any increase in the total term whatsoever? So it's a really tricky scenario. But we've seen Chelsea fix their squad pretty ruthlessly, and I think despite the criticisms of the work they have done in the transfer market, they have found ways to make things work. And can United do the same? But you come back to the new structure. Is Wilcox handling negotiations? Is the Diego Leon deal sort of a preview of what that looks like with Vavell's global scouting network and global contacts being utilised? Wilcox closing the deal, Barada handling parts of negotiations too, like he did with the Amarim deal. Is it less hands actually more beneficial and less overlap in roles?
Absolutely. And I'm really wary of kind of hero worshipping here, and like putting it like if it's a system and a structure and it's not overbearing, because you don't want too many people on the board, right? I mean, or the football operation side of things. And you also don't want to rely on one person as the person that will fix all things, even if we're looking at Amarim going, hey, he's the most important person of this new structure. So the Leon deal, looks really interesting, doesn't it? United haven't done a deal like that for a long time. Not since, I don't know, maybe Javier Hernandez. They've plucked someone out from total obscurity. I mean, on the youth side, they've done a few, but it's all been from around Europe, really. So yes, that one very much looks different. Since you mentioned it, and since there's just total misery to talk about with the actual game itself, let's talk about Rashford and Casemiro, because Casemiro on the bench, barely been used at all by Amarim. I guess just doesn't like it, or likes Manuel Ugarte, but when Ugarte went off yesterday, Casemiro did not come on. And then Rashford frozen out for, is that the third game in a row now that he's been totally out? Obviously, the Telegraph are running a story an hour at the moment about Marcus Rashford. Particularly appeals to their readership, I would say. Quite a lot of inaccuracies, as I understand it, in some of those reports. So there's that to deal with. You talked about the money side of things. I was just writing on my Substack, nqatpod.substack.com. It's free. If anyone wants to, I was just trying to do some scenarios on what the money looks like. Kind of a high, medium, low type sales scenario for Marcus Rashford, and it's just there's huge numbers whatever way you think about it. And then Casemiro, kind of similar, but obviously fewer years on the contract. Very, very similar. I mean, actually, Casemiro's PSR hit is much higher than Marcus Rashford because there was a fee, and there's no fee with Rashford. So the upside of selling Rashford is bigger. The downside of keeping Casemiro is bigger. So, take your poison on that one. But either way, you would get well over £500,000 off the wages, and then a PSR benefit from selling, if that is what is going to go down.
Well, the PSR era really makes teams pay, particularly like United, who have been so inept in the transfer market for years of ineptitude. I mean, you look at the Anthony Sancho. So many bad signings. We're paying the price for that now. I mean, Casemiro had a brilliant first season, but how much are we paying for that financially now in the current period? You do wonder. There's the theory. There's so many theories flying around, but one of them is that Anthony, Casemiro, Rashford are three of the five top earners at the club. That's wild to think about in one sense, that they are being sort of frozen out. The Ineos penny pinchers, as they've been described online, they're just trying to trim the wage bill and try and operate in a more streamlined fashion, which honestly you can't blame them for. But they're fixing the wage bill and just the structure in general has been a problem for a long time.
I don't think there's anything wrong with paying players massive wages. It's a competitive market, right? I mean, look, in a sense, Marcus Rashford earns in a week, whatever the number, and it's not the one reported, but whatever the number, he earns in a week what most fans will never earn in a year, right? So, in fact, a tiny proportion of fans would manage to earn in a year what Marcus earns in a week. That's just sport, though. Someone else is going to earn that money. United are not going to be able to beat the system and go, hey, we're going to average a much lower wage bill than our competitors and still win, right? That's not going to be like that. So there will be someone, if they're a superstar, that comes in and earns big wages. If they're not, and we manage to develop the superstars from younger players, we're going to take some short-term pain, or many years of pain, and then they will earn the superstar wages, because if they don't, they'll go elsewhere, right? So there's no beating that system. The real pain comes when you have high earners who are not performing. And unfortunately, we've had quite a lot of those. And it's kind of becomes even more serious when they're high earners not performing, not in the team, because you can't get them to a position where someone is willing to take a risk on them. Happened with Sancho, right? Chelsea's obligation, given that he's now played enough games, I think, or almost certainly will have played enough games, under 40% or something like that, and they have to finish above 14th, which they're going to do, is 25 million. Now, from a PSR standpoint, that's not horrendous because we've run down his contract, but in a cash terms, it's pretty bad. Marcus, the package is on, and he's on really high wages as well, Sancho, right? So they'll disappear next summer. They're gone now. Marcus is kind of similar in that the longer he's out of the team, the more other teams will obviously question why that is the case. Now, his team and United will have to sell a story to any suitors about why that is the case. Amorim's doing a very good job, I think, in the press conferences of saying, hey, you forget all the other stuff. It's just a tactical decision. Now, is that true? Is that not true? Make your own minds up. But it's a good way of signaling to the market that, we're just trying to work on some stuff. Now, the longer that is true, if he's not sold or loaned out in January, the harder it is to sell that story that it's just a tactical thing. And it'll clearly be something else at that point. And can they? Are the NLS team? Are we prepared as a club to go? Okay, yeah, we'll take the low end of the scenarios I was talking about in terms of fees, just to get the wages off the book. The really worst case scenario, and it's a perfectly feasible one, is you get quite a low fee and you have to subsidize the wages in some fashion. Right. And the net PSR benefit may be positive, but it won't be nearly as big as we want. And you've taken a player who, in theory, can score 30 goals or get 30 goals and assists per season, in theory, because I know he's had a bad 18 months or so. And you just get him out of the squad and you have to spend money, potentially 60, 80, 100 million, in order to get a player who can do that.
It's just a disastrous scenario all around, in my view. Like it's obviously heartbreaking to see something end like this, and the thought of him not getting goodbye. But that happens with so many players. It reminds me, unfortunately, like the subsidised wages part. It reminds me of when Nani went to Sporting Lisbon and
paid quite a lot for him to go as well.
Yeah, and United paid the vast majority of his. He was on like 180k at the time, which was massive back then, 10 years ago. It just reminds me of that. But you lose a whatever you think of Marcus Rashford, you're still losing a certain amount of goals. He's certainly got the best production value of goals of any forward that we do have. And then you have to spend to replace. But United are in the scenario where they don't. We already know, like what goes without saying, United don't have a lot of money to spend. Who's going to want to come to the club? The appeal of the club and the financial constraints of the club make replacing him almost as hard as it's going to be to sell him. Mm-hmm. So it's almost an impossible scenario all around.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the dialogue and discourse online, I mean, I try and just forget 95% of it because most of it's not very smart. But the prevailing view, and I think as like people I've spoken to who are regulars at the ground now, given that I now live 5,000 miles away. A bit hard to do that. Like the consensus view is that people have had enough, right? But even if you say, even if you accept that as the truth that people have had enough, it doesn't make it the sensible decision from a financial point of view or a sporting point of view. Just do a swap out, right? There will be pain. And when people are going, hey, we can't score any goals, wouldn't it be good if we had a left-sided forward? Oh, yeah, let's just spend it on Rafael Leon, Leao from Milan, or Kvaratskhelia, or pick there's massive numbers involved in that. And the more often you have to do these kind of deals where you're getting rid of the poison, then I mean that in a metaphorical sense. I'm not calling Marcus Rashford poison. The less options, the fewer financial options you have to actually do those big deals, right? So if it's doing a shitty deal like that for a left-sided forward, you can't bring in the left wing back for massive amounts of money, unless Alphonso Davies has some kind of aforementioned stroke and decides that he'd much rather join Manchester United than stay at Bayern or join Real Madrid. I mean, hey, could happen, maybe. Seems unlikely. But it just, this is why the squad building is so important these days, because the more mistakes you make, and United had a lot, it takes you 3 years to work that out from a PSR perspective, work out the system, and 5 from a contract perspective. That's a hell of a lot of pain every time you make a mistake.
Yeah, it's definitely refined squad building, and it's interesting that in an era of the greatest parity we've ever seen in the Premier League, I mean, Bournemouth being the greatest example of that again, it's a weird time to be rebuilding, because if you get it right, you can shoot up the table really quickly. But if you get it wrong, you're going to be languishing where you are for a lot longer. So it's a really, I don't know if interesting is the right word. I actually thought Barcelona make a lot of sense because they're dying for a left winger in the current system, but they're a club who's in arguably more financial crisis than Manchester United. So unless you're doing one of those convenient swap deals where you slap a financial value on a player and then send them the other way,
that might be the only way.
Yeah, honestly, I really think it is.
But Barcelona are having problems with Dani Olmo's registration because of they're on in La Liga registration. They won't have a UEFA problem, but just because of the way the financial constraints work there and what they can accept as how much of any fee that they get for selling players they can bring into their financial calculations. Yeah, so it seems unlikely, even if from a team point of view, that would actually be a good one. Maybe they could do a loan, short-term loan. If that doesn't even make sense to me, because if we're in a position where we think that he could go out and do well, then is it so bad? Are these off the field issues so bad, or is the disruption in the squad so bad that they just have to get rid? I have not heard anything from anyone. Forget everything you hear on the internet because it's nonsense. I have not heard from anyone who's telling me that is the case with Marcus Rashford. Now, there may be the club may have some issues with his people, right? That is the same all the time, right? Clubs have to deal with that all the time now. So I'm not sure that it's true that there are so many problems with Marcus Rashford's just mere presence at United that they would do a loan deal just to get him away, right? This is, I think, a underperforming player. They're taking a very hard-nosed view at the performance versus the return on investment, right? Performance versus cost of players, and saying, hey, if there's no performance here, we're better moving on quite quickly, which isn't a horrendous way of thinking about things if you can get those kind of deals done. Right? I mean, I'm sentimental about Marcus Rashford because of who he is, the man, and what he's done, right? People who call him a virus and just are like fucking incels in their basement playing Football Manager all day long. It's no point conversing with these people. They definitely do not know what's going on. So I have a lot of respect for Rashford, the man. I feel some pity for what the situation has become and the abuse he takes of all stripes. And I'd like to see him do well. Ideally, that'd be United because it solved all these problems straight away. But it appears that will not be the case.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think my personal view is from an Ineos perspective, is they're looking at it as a value for money proposition. and that the asset is just not returning near the value of
Yeah.
what they're paying for. And like you said, that's a sound way of thinking if you're just talking about that. Obviously, it goes without saying that I don't buy into the. I think that the personality or work ethic, I think those things are, or the entourage that he has, I think all those things are perfectly valid. We know what sort of impact an entourage can have on a player and their decision making and things like that. But again, the thread that you posted on X, I think it would have been last week now, was really pronounced in understanding Marcus Rashford and who he is and where he's come from. I think that sentimentality is what football is all about, the nostalgia and the things, particularly, I suppose, the nostalgia as a United fan at the moment. But if people think that sentimentality and nostalgia is a problem, I don't think they really understand what football fandom's all about and what brings you to the games. Ultimately, hopefully he can work it out. But either way, he's going to have to put his head down and work hard, whether it's here or at another club. Because I think the biggest problem he's had the last 18 months is probably application. But
I think that's fair. I was trying to track some of the data. Some of it's on the pro version of Opta, which I do not have access to, given it's aimed at pro clubs and it's rather expensive. If everyone wants to gift it to me, great. But yeah, so I haven't got the full running stats. But if you look at like total amount ran or number of sprints, it's a little down, but it's not way down. I think what actually people are complaining about when they say work ethic is they want him running back into the left back position, covering the fullback and doing some defensive stuff and making a few tackles, right? And a few of those, when Wayne Rooney was playing absolutely out of his arse towards the end of his time at United, but he would sprint 50 yards back and make a tackle, and he contributed very little towards the end. Love him, not a criticism. I think that's an absolute truism. But it never appeared like his work ethic had dropped. And as a result, you don't lose the fans. And with Rashford, he could probably do with some of that. It's just, one, not the best use of him. Like, you want him in the highest possible position on the pitch all of the time and quite narrow. And two, he's not the best presser or defender in the world. That's like a weaker part of his game. It was a weak part of Paul Pogba's game, and people hated it. The attacking side of Manuel Agate's game is pretty average. The defensive side is great. He works really hard, makes a load of tackles, right? Can't pass for shit, to be honest. He's in the 13th percentile for progressive passes completed amongst top 5 European leagues, right? So we all know as fans, right? Like, player running 50 yards, making a crunching tackle, you're going to love it. Like,
can I be honest?
Yeah,
it's not about the defensive contribution. I never thought it's about that. I think it's entirely because you get paid X wages. You need to match this production all the time.
There is
that
to
be
too.
A 30 goal / assist player all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that those defensive concerns, which have always been there with Marcus Rashford, he's never been a particularly hard worker defensively. He's never been a particularly strong presser. He's been a good finisher.
Yeah.
And because he's not doing that now, it's never really about that for me. And we're just unhappy about something else. It's not really that thing that we're upset
The money
about,
side of things is interesting though, isn't it? Because we've just gone through a bunch of kind of analytical stuff about the finances. It's really important. Why should fans care though? Really? I know we necessarily do, because none of us earn this kind of money. And we'd all like to be dating supermodels and earning 300 grand a week or whatever, right? So there's that. If he was on £200,000 a week, would the criticism be less? If he was on 100,000, like for the actual player, for Marcus Rashford, the difference between 200,000 a week and 300,000 a week, if that's the number, is really not. But let's just say it does not going to make any difference to his lifestyle whatsoever. But obviously the players and the agents go for the biggest number they can get, because why not? Right? Manchester United are owned by a bunch of blood-sucking billionaires. Now, we have a minority shareholders, a blood-sucking billionaire who has bought it for his legacy, we think. And so they're thinking in slightly different ways, but so...
I just think the media coverage has been more aggressive since the pandemic. And I think whether fans realise it or not, that does have an impact on how they view him, because his wage is always quoted. It's always quoted as the highest reported figure. Now, people jump on Capology and grab his 300,000 plus 75,000 bonuses, not noticing the disclaimer on the website that says it's based on reported figures, which are reported by the media. We don't actually have that.
It's a circular economy, that one, isn't it?
Yeah.
The media all go to Crapology, as it's called in the biz, by the way. They report that, and then Crapology picks that up again, and they just, So, I mean, I think I mentioned it on last week's pod. Manchester United's 23 financials, total employee benefits, so that includes the 1,000 staff, or now 750 staff, plus all the players, was 364 million, right? The idea that Marcus Rashford would be 10% of total employee benefits, or about 15% of the squad, absolutely fucking nuts. Like, you're off your head if you think this is true. No football club behaves like that. We have 40 professionals on the books, so it's not going to be that. But I totally take it. Like, he earns a fabulous amount of money, he has a wonderful lifestyle as a result, and if the performances aren't there, people are going to get frustrated. So for sure, the thing that would fix absolutely everything is if he plays against Wolves on Boxing Day and scores a hat-trick, kisses the badge, and apologizes for not doing it in the past, and maybe it would fix some ills. Maybe.
Do you think
there's
any chance he's in the squad in the next two games?
Well, if you take Ruben Amorim's quotes at face value, then yes, because he said, like, it's up to him. We're working with him. We need him. He said, we need him. We need Marcus Rashford. And I do. They need he said that today in one of his 14 interviews in the last 3 days. Yeah. So he's saying all the right things. Now, if he's not, it's either Rashford is not responding, and that could also be true. Like, it could be that it's just too far gone for him. Something mentally has changed, and he wants gone. And United will find a solution. In that case, it will be a very expensive financial solution to solve that problem, if that is the case. So we better hope it's not. Because we'll be subsidizing him to play for someone else. So that could be the case. But if we take it at face value, to answer your question, then there is obviously an option here. Now, I don't know. Do you think Ruben Amorim would be Manchester United manager if Sir Jim was on the phone saying, you can't play this player, we want him out, and we've decided we're going to force him out? I don't know if I buy that.
I just don't think it all adds up. I did find it interesting that he said after the first game that they were trying something new with him, and maybe it's as simple as he's going to see that out. But it's hard to see him miss 3 match day squads in a row and think that, all things considered, all the reporting, whatever you take from that, and think that he's going to find his way back in. I hope he puts his head down and finds his way back in, and he's scoring goals by January. But it's just hard to know. You can look at the 14 columns in the Telegraph of late. I found it interesting that James Ducker was reporting this morning that Marcus Rashford wants to leave when he's been absolutely hammering him from pillar to post the past 2 weeks. I find it hard to believe that he's got the source on that story. I would find that that's more from someone else who would want the narrative to go that way. But it's more interesting to me that whatever side of the argument on, and I'm guilty of this too, because I'm quite outspoken about it online, is that we'll take the reporting that suits us the most.
No, sure,
rather than thinking critically about it, right?
We all have our priors on this, for sure.
We'll have our biases.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, okay, that gives us a bit of a segue. Unless we have anything else to talk about Bournemouth, because I don't. It's horrendous. I don't want to think about it ever again. But
no.
All right. Segue into Wolves on Boxing Day. I do kind of like we do have a gap. We're not playing 22nd, 26th, 28th, 30th, 3rd. There's one fewer games between Wolves and Newcastle, basically. But Wolves, kind of interesting. It's really hard to know exactly what they're going to be like. Brand new manager. He's moved to a 3-4-3, 3-4-2-1 type system. Very similar setup. They beat Leicester, who are finding their feet still under Ruud van Nistelrooy. Wolves have a better squad than Leicester, I'd say. I mean, it's marginal.
Much more top-ended, I would say.
And they've got Matheus Cunha, who's scoring goals. He's never been a big goal scorer, really, but he's in a a little bit of a hot streak for him. They spent a lot of money on him from Atletico Madrid, and everyone was looking and going, we like some of his passing range and off the ball work. We don't like his goal scoring for a forward, but so he's scoring goals. The 3-4-3. We'll see if it suits them. I don't know. Do you think it does? Do they have those wide wing back players that really makes that work?
I mean, ideally with Semedo and Aït-Nouri, it does sort of work.
Yeah, Aït-Nouri's Semedo was a great attacking fullback at one point. Not sure he really moved on. Aït-Nouri, I think people like a lot. So
yeah, he's certainly one of him and Cunha are obviously top targets of United. I think those are more of the level of targets United are going to have to look at. Like if Wolves do end up being relegated, which is certainly a possibility at this point, despite the new manager bounce against Leicester, those are more of the targets I think are realistic for the club, because they're going to have to look at opportunities in the market. These targets from Napoli, AC Milan, I'm just not buying that. Like I know people speaking at Morgan Rogers after City lost again to Aston Villa on the weekend. I think, your Cunhas are more that level of player, and we do need ball carriers, and Cunha is statistically, I think, the best ball carrier in the Premier League at the moment in the forward half. So I think it'll be interesting playing a team that is not well drilled in a new system. That'll be interesting to see how much we've progressed. If they do play that identical 3-4-2-1, they are a very good side. It'll be interesting to see Ugarte and Gomez go head to head in midfield. I actually think Ugarte is, he was been so good in the last two games. He's been our best midfielder. And we do need someone to take the pressure off Kobbie Mainoo. Let's be honest.
Oh, for sure.
I think between Mainoo and Garnacho, we are seeing too much demands being put on young players, and that's the risk we're running amidst this rebuild, is relying too heavily on young players. Like, think of the amount of football that Garnacho's played in the last 12 months. He's had the knee injury at the start of the season, which I think clearly is still taking an effect. We just need to get the demands off them. But I'm curious. I mean, they won 3-0 at Leicester. Paul Ruud van Nistelrooy, new manager bounce has gone already there, that's for sure. But they weren't. I think the scoreline did flatter them a little bit. Looking back on the game, so I'm expecting a win. I'm expecting a response. But you know me, at always sunny side up. So maybe I'm just being a little bit naive. What about you?
Yeah, I don't see much in this Wolves squad. I mean, I know they got that win, but there's no time for them to bed a new system in. They're just doing what Ruben Amorim did and said, "Hey, this is what we're doing." Vitor Pereira he's kind of interesting character. I mean, he's come from the Saudi Pro League, but at a very low fee to get him in. He's a bit of a character. He said that he was going to train them like they're wearing a GPS, tactical GPS. So, okay. Wolves have been swapping between Sarr and Sam Johnson in goal. All that, it's been a bit of a weird one. They seem to have one in, one out. Maybe Sarr keeps the jersey now, given that they had the clean sheet, and the rest of it, they've been in a bit of limbo as a club, because obviously they were bought by Chinese owners. There's a big pullback from investment, especially foreign investments, to do with the party saying that was no anymore. Inter Milan had a problem with that as well for a while until they were sold, part of it sold. And so Wolves have been in this kind of limbo state. Obviously, pretty attractive proposition. I mean, they've got a good ground. They've been a solid Premier League club for a number of years now. It's a one club town. I mean, I know there's West Brom over the road and all of that, but it's an attractive proposition for a purchaser, but much less so if they go down, where they would obviously make a tenth of the money. So you can see why they make the change and why they're kind of desperate to stay in it. No guarantees. There's they're 5 adrift, basically. There's a little bit of a gap. United are 10 points ahead of the relegation zone. So I think we're all right.
It's not like we're out of it either. Yeah.
Oh, no, I know. We are closer to the relegation zone than top 4, sadly. But it looks like 3 from 5, doesn't it? And Wolves are definitely in that bracket.
Well, if we follow the pattern, we'll win the next 2 games and then lose to Liverpool. So I'm hoping Ruben Amorim breaks the win-win loss pattern.
Yeah.
But I think Wolves do offer the danger of what United did in Ruben Amorim's early days, is that unpredictability.
Mm-hmm.
And they do have quality. Like I said, when we first started talking about them, they are top heavy with their quality. It is the danger of relegation because they would be pillaged, and it would be really hard for them to get back up. They're not an Ipswich where they have established quality through their squad that they've brought up, and they'd probably take down with them. That would be the sort of club that wouldn't yo-yo.
Well, yes, because everyone's on Premier League wages.
Yeah.
So yes, they would have to get rid of an awful lot of that. Parachute payments solve some of that problem, but it's a question like how many of those players would want to stay. Definitely not the better ones. The few better ones they have.
I'm more curious to see if we can break the conceding first trend. So conceding 6 games in a row, the first goal, it has to stop. I think with the talent that United has, or lack thereof, however you want to look at it, they do have to score first. The way they want to play, the way they want to open the game up for their attackers, and the limits that we have in attack, and how good we are in open play defense as opposed. Well, speaking of set play defense, Wolves have conceded the most set piece goals in the Premier League. So they've conceded 14. United have conceded 9. So maybe we'll find some joy if we just pillage them at corners and just let Ahmad take them and not let Bruno take them.
Well, I mean, it's a good point, isn't it? I mean, Bruno, like the way I see Bruno's set pieces, he's trying to hit he's trying to hit the perfect one, right? So that flat delivery that hits the first man all the time. Now, a set piece coach would go, great defending. That's what the first man is there for. Exactly that. That's what they're there to do. Because the most dangerous one is the flat one that goes, like, as we saw against
the chaos ball.
Yeah, against Arsenal.
It's perfect for Bruno.
Just right underneath the crossbar. It's much less dangerous if you float them in. And so Bruno is going for that, but of course it's a high risk, high reward variant. Ahmad hit a few nice ones. It is very true, but the floated one into around about the penalty spot doesn't really do it for anyone. So
don't have the aerial quality, especially without Casemiro on the side.
We do not. Yeah, there was a trend in the Premier League going away from hitting the ball in. Arsenal may have changed that with their set pieces and the success they've had there, and Forest too. But City's kind of started it where they were just not hitting the ball into the box, and 85% of their corners were played short, and they were just using it as a way of retaining possession.
We're back in the Barclays area of the Premier League, I think.
Yeah, maybe we are, yeah. Hit it to the big man. Yeah, all right. I think we've covered most of what's going on at United at the moment. Any drama
Wasn't
happened?
too depressing.
No. I'm always like, because obviously my time zone is rather out these days, I have to not give in to the temptation to doom scroll all night, which I do sometimes, but it's not good for one's sleep patterns, and wake up to scroll back through my timeline and go, okay, what drama's happened overnight? So, not too much today.
As soon as Manchester United posted that they were hoping to give the gift of 3 points, I don't know if you saw that on their account. I was like, that is just going to look so bad if we lose to Bournemouth. It was when they posted, I wondered if the person in the social team was like, this doesn't read the best. So please don't do anything like that for the Boxing Day post. It's just like, no belated gifts, please. You ruined Ed's birthday. Let's not ruin Christmas.
As has been noted on this podcast before, I got married. Do you remember when Anderson and Cleverley were the partnership? And I think it was Cleverley who got injured, ankle injury. I think it was against Fulham, September the 10th, 2011. And he was never the same again. So I ruined his career. United are doing their best to ruin my birthday year after year.
Nothing will make you feel older than seeing Tom Cleverley strolling down a touchline these days for Watford. I was just like, how old am I?
We had Michael Carrick and Wayne Rooney facing off against each other. Played out a 3-3 draw the other day, didn't they? So Wayne Rooney doing an all right job at Plymouth. It
does make you think that Birmingham were the problem, not him.
Yeah. I mean, he did an okay job at Derby before that, and DC United sort of. It's very hard in the MLS to tell whether they're a good coach or not, because there's no relegation and the salary cap and designated player status kind of distorts it all a little bit. It's very hard.
It's more yo-yo to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not quite, but it's almost the football equivalent of when you get a formula in racing and like Formula E, and they're all basically the same, right? You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I may be talking about my arse because I don't follow racing too carefully, but something like that. All right. We'll end this nonsense here. Adam, lovely to have you on.
Thank you. It was an honor.
Everybody, thanks for listening. You can find us on all the socials. Adam is Adam Joseph on Twitter
with 4 underscores.
With 4 underscores,
just causing chaos.
Yeah,
more chaos than a Bruno ball.
Absolutely. You can find me at NQAT Pod. We're also same handle on all the other socials and on Substack if you want to catch me pontificating about something once a week. Thanks a lot. Bye now.